Greetings, Coda crew leaders. It is June the 12th. I'm back out here at Swampy Trails. Hadn't been here in a little bit. Last I was here, snow was still present on some of the trails, but looks like all snow has pretty much melted. Maybe pretty high up on Ridge Loop heading towards Vista is now clear of snow, maybe just some snow patches left. But wanted to take a look at this. This is part of the Swampy Loop. And it actually just rained. Rained past couple of days. It's actually done some raining, and it's rained today a little bit. Ground is definitely wet. Parking lot was wet when I pulled in. But yeah, I wanted to take a look, and we've got an upcoming education evening for crew leaders. But for those of you that can't make it, wanted to try to do a short video and help you get some education even though you may not be present. As you can see, this particular section of trail is really pretty flat. It doesn't have a lot of gradient whatsoever to it. If we look over to our left and then over to our right, we don't see any signs of water-based erosion whatsoever. And that is because of the ground cover. There's a nice little grass ground cover here. This obviously got thinned not too long ago, a couple years back. I can't remember exactly when, but it did get thinned. And I think that part of the Forest Service's prescription is to try to get more grasses to grow in between instead of more of a bushy material. The manzanita, the ceanothus, that burns hotter than a grass would, and provides for a better ladder fuel situation, whereas grasses, they can burn, but they don't provide much in the way of ladder fuels. Kind of interesting that they haven't done anything clearing. They just cut material over here, but they left it, whereas to the right, they actually did clear it. But anyway, no signs of erosion where there is vegetation or where there is downfall, dead matter, but it's when we have soils that are bare that we do see signs of water-based erosion. That coupled with the fact that mountain bikes have pretty much a compactive force, so they harden trail tread as we travel across them. In most areas we do, some areas we don't. When it gets too steep, we have a displacement force. But we can see some pretty obvious signs of water movement coming down this trail. Nothing bad, and also definitely want to point out that this is not a sensitive landscape. I mean, the Forest Service has kind of told us that with the treatment that they're doing. And there, of course, is no water courses whatsoever anywhere close to this. So there's no opportunity for sediment to drop into a water course, a stream or a river. But let's take a look back, and we definitely see the obvious signs of water running down trail. And then we see an old historic water bar thing. I don't know if it was put in as a check dam or a water bar, but we see that right here. And we see that it is actually turning water. I mean, we certainly can see that water, has turned and went in a right-hand corner. But we also noticed that it had a fair bit of force. For it to be moving soil this far off the trail, is telling me that it's got a pretty good force behind it. And that is telling me that we need to do a better job of water management up trail. But we also can see that if it was even a bigger, volume and velocity, it would push right past this water check dam thing. I'm not quite sure what to call it. With enough volume and velocity, water will push right past these, jump these. Let's go take a look at this one down below. This one has a lead-off ditch. The one behind us did not really have a lead-off ditch, but we see a lead-off ditch here. So even on flat trails do need drainage. Again, any soil loss that is happening here is not a big thing because it's not getting towards a waterway. But, and again, this is not a sensitive landscape by any stretch of the imagination. As we walk up trail, we'll see how far it is before we reach an active functioning drain. And my guess is it's going to be quite a ways. We see little sand puddles right here. That also is indicative of water movement. Anytime you see a sand puddle like that, it's telling you that up above, water's moving fast enough to pick up soil, and then it's going to drop it out where it starts to slow down. And as we see our pitch increase, we're seeing places where the soil has left from, whereas back behind where it's a bit flatter, we're going to see those soil depositions. So soil loss and then soil deposition. And this is kind of interesting right here. We see that the water took a little bit of a jog coming like this, but still very much is running down this trail. This trail is pretty straight, which is part of the problem. Trails that are dropping consistently and then also fairly straight are exactly what water wants to do. Water wants to run downhill, and it wants to run in a straight line. I'm not sure if this was an old trail over here. Not 100% sure of that, but we're definitely seeing a bit more in the way of water-based erosion as we walk up. Still no functional drainage whatsoever. Here we see a big wide spot. Oftentimes those wide spots are indicative of places where that sediment load has dropped out, and the sediment load will drop right in the dead middle, and as those become even worse sand puddles, then riders and users will tend to go around them and tend to widen the trail out. Still no functional water management. Here we see skidder tracks from when they were in here doing the thinning work that they were doing. Again, not a sensitive landscape. Skidders have been all in here. Again, you see a big contrast in terms of treatment on the right versus treatment on the left. They just cut material, but they didn't do anything to remove it, which has me scratching my head. Sure still looks like that's a fuels load to me, but I'm not an expert in that. I'm an expert in trails. Still no water management as we continue up. We're always going to see some sand puddles on the uphill side of a route like this because water has to slow down just a little bit to bump over that route, and that might be just enough to slow that water down to get that sediment to drop out. Our soil type, we don't have any clay whatsoever. Our soil type is mostly a sandy loam. Obviously, it's got some sand in it, but a lot of ash from many volcanoes blowing up. And so it's a very highly erodible soil. If this was a clay-based soil with the types of rain that we get, there would be basically no signs of erosion because that clay-based soil would be very, very durable. But this is a highly erodible trail or soil type. This is interesting as we see right in the middle of the bottom of the trail tread itself is where water wants to go. And as that gets to be kind of more V'd out, we're seeing a lot of bike traffic to the left and bike traffic to the right, avoiding that bottom. So that's kind of interesting. Continuing up, again, pretty significant signs of erosion right in this area. Sorry for the double pole point. It might make more sense if I only had one pole, but I do have two poles. So yeah, very significant signs of water-based erosion right through here. And I believe this is the area that I did a video previously And not surprisingly, we're seeing that most of the tire tracks are over here on the right, avoiding this route. Even though this route would be, pretty much in line with what you might expect. My guess is that this is predominantly climbing traffic, and descending traffic are just going to pop and roll down that route. And then also traffic patterns, wear patterns are telling me that people are predominantly using this as an out, up, as opposed to a down. Have to come out here and park for a while to, know that for sure. Again, you see this, sand puddle right here, on the uphill side of the route. Again, that's fairly common. We definitely see those a lot. Water's got to slow down just enough there to, pop over that route. And that's just enough speed differential to allow that sediment to drop out. Still no water management. We've been several good 100 feet already. And as I continue up trail, I'm guessing that I'm not going to see any water management. I don't know if this has had any recent work in the last couple of years, but I am certainly seeing no signs of that whatsoever. Seeing a lot of good places to put in a good rolling dip. I think that back behind us was probably one of the steeper pitches. We're in a bit more mellow terrain here now. It's not quite as steep. In a little bit, I'm going to jump up to the road that's up above us, and we'll contrast surface runoff on that road. Definite signs of water-based erosion through here. Still no water management. That's a pretty long section of trail that's got no water management whatsoever. So we need to be popping in good functional rolling grade dips on this section of trail every, I'd say 100 feet, maybe 150. But making sure that they're well built and are going to function. We can spread them out a little bit more as we get into a flatter terrain, because water's just not going to move as fast on that flat. But given that the trail has no water management here, we've walked an entire section of trail in which water is running, and that's again what we call the trail tread watershed. So there's not anything draining from our left coming onto the trail. We know we've got a road that's up above us, but I doubt we've got a lot of surface runoff coming off of that road or coming down through this landscape, even though the trail right here is lower than the land up above us. So the predominant trail tread watershed here is going to be the trail itself. The trail is the only thing that doesn't have forest duff or grass, or some type of vegetation growing on it. And therefore, that's where we're going to see our water movement. Again, over here we have pine needles, we have forest duff, we've got trees, so we're not really going to get a lot of surface runoff either to the right or up to our left.